Self-publishing. Are the new tools as good as traditional publishers? How to make great investigative journalism today. Some tips from the head of Google Digital News Initiative. The threat of propaganda, fighting for the freedom of press in an age of uncertainty. Live journalism, everything you need to know about reporting in real time. Good morning and welcome to the English edition of TG Mag. I'm Graziella Matarrese. This is the first part of our special edition entirely dedicated to the International Journalism Festival of Perugia. There we met some of the most interesting speakers and we discussed with them about the latest innovation in journalism worldwide. Let's start with a discussion about the innovative tools that allow self-publishing today. Journalists can turn themselves into writers and publish their own work. But are self-publishing tools as good as traditional publishers? Stefan Tolti is an American writer and journalist. He told us about the advantages and disadvantages of self-publishing.
Why a journalist who would like to become a writer should prefer a self-publishing platform instead of a traditional publisher?
I think it's helpful to begin with self-publishing because often the traditional publishing is hard to break into. You have to have what publishers in the US call the platform. You have to have a popular Twitter feed or many Facebook friends because they want you now almost to sell your own book. But with self-publishing, the costs of entry are very much easier to get to. You can write your own book. You can write it how you want. You can have it edited yourself and you can put it out there. I think it gives you a great deal of experience in the whole sort of panorama of publishing. But I do suggest that eventually you try to move towards traditional publishing, not only because the money is better, frankly, honestly, often, but then you have editors who've worked in the business maybe 20 or 30 years, and I think 98% of good writers need good editors. Then you also have a publicity department, and again, they have ways of positioning your book and getting out the news in ways that will sell it much more than you can through social media.
And do you think that any news item can become a successful book, or does it usually happen only with crime news?
No, I think not at all. Especially in the US, crime is still popular, but many other genres are coming up and surpassing crime. Women's issues are doing very well. African American books. I think crime will always be there. I think it's been a fascination since the Romans and beyond that.
In the last few years, Google has tried to join journalists worldwide. The Google Digital News Initiative is a partnership between Google and publishers in Europe to support high-quality journalism through technology and innovation. The fund is 150 million euros worth, and throughout 2016, it has supported over 252 projects for digital reporting. Ludovic Bléchet is the head of the D&I Innovation Fund. We asked him some suggestions for great investigative journalists.
So what are the reasons for this huge collaboration among journalists around Europe or around the world?
That I cannot really answer because I'm not anymore a journalist and I'm not doing investigation myself. But what I can say is how technology is now empowering investigative journalism. And through the fund, we see much more projects that are about investigative reporting and how tools and technology can help to have cross-border collaborative effort to secure the exchange of information when it's about dealing with very sensitive and manipulating sensitive material. So maybe this is part of the explanation.
Even though you're not anymore a journalist, but you're in the right position, I think, as an observer. So what are 3 golden rules to keep in mind for an effective output in investigative journalism?
I would say, it's always about verification, cross-checking everything, and then securing things to make sure you can work properly on everything. So, but the what, the when, the where, I mean, it's always
Okay.
the most important things.
What do you think investigative journalism nowadays still lack of?
No, I wouldn't say that there is a specific lack. I think we see more and more things, and those collaborative efforts are a demonstration of the vitality of investigative reporting today.
Freedom of speech is nowadays a big deal in many countries of the world. Publishers have to face pressures from propaganda machines trying to influence the media. Tamás Bodoki is a Hungarian journalist and the founder of Atlasso, a watchdog NGO, an online newspaper for investigative journalism in Hungary. He told us about how reporters can fight for the right of information.
Can you give us some example of the propaganda in your country, Hungary, right now?
The government spends billions of Hungarian forints on propaganda for street billboards, TV ads, radio ads, and usually they pick a target. So last year the target was the migrants and the refugees, depicting the refugees as terrorists and dangerous people who wish to take away the Hungarian jobs so they can build a fence on the southern border. And this year they picked a new enemy, which is the George Soros, a Hungarian-born billionaire who does a lot of charity work in Hungary. And we are showing people how much money is spent by the government on the propaganda and how the statements by the government are often false or misleading.
How can the European Union do to hinder the propaganda machine in your country or generally in every populism country in Europe?
Unfortunately, the European Union has no media ownership in Hungary, so it breaks down to who owns the media. In Hungary, a lot of media is owned by pro-government circles or people who are dealing with the government in other businesses. So there is no strong platforms for refusing the government propaganda. And honestly, I have no idea how the European Union could deal with this situation.
And generally speaking, how can a journalist do to resist the propaganda machine?
Well, you shouldn't work for those outlets. This is getting more and more difficult in Hungary because there are a lot of jobs in the pro-government sector of the media, and there are very few jobs which you can remain critical and independent. But there are a lot of journalists who quit, so in the last 2 years dozens of journalists quit their jobs with this kind of media organizations, and there are promising new startups to create an independent media space in Hungary.
You're optimistic.
Well, the situation looks bad now, but I think this cannot go forever. I hope Hungary will not reach that kind of authoritarianism.
Alternative and independent publishers are more and more experimenting with doing journalism in live settings. Mass interviews events and real-time fact-checkathons are just some of the many creative ways media organizations have used live journalism. We met Joris Lujedik, a London-based journalist and writer, to get to know something more about live journalism.
Mr. Lujedik, can you please explain us what live journalism is?
I think the closest analogy is with pop music. So a journalist records a song in a studio, but in live journalism, it's a concert. He's playing it live.
Okay, so he's playing with other people?
Yeah. And
Other
so
journalists or other common citizens?
I think that there are two models. So one is to basically do everything you did in a newspaper, but now live. But another one, the one I prefer, is to involve citizens, readers, sources, and do the actual process of journalism, of, for example, finding something out, like a populist voter, why do you actually vote for a populist party, and let that happen on stage, so that the process of journalism happening in front of you.
So that's basically it's a real-time journalism, but don't you think there is a threat about how can you check, how can you do fact-checking or control the audience or this kind of stuff? How can you manage it?
Yeah. Well, this is an excellent point, and this is why I think you have to prepare your audience for a different experience.
Okay.
Because the power of journalism is you filter, check, and then you publish. And here you publish, it happens, and then you start filtering. On the other hand, if to lie in front of an audience is more difficult than to lie just to a journalist. You're standing there, 500 people, and you're telling something you know to be untrue. That's difficult. But you need to make sure the audience understands that you haven't been able to control the information in the same way.
And at the end of the process, you have to be honest and maybe sometimes raise your hand and say, I was wrong, you were right.
Yeah, and of course you can have somebody fact check during the interview the way you fact check during a presidential debate.
Okay, and for example, the last experience in live journalism you had, what was that?
I do it mostly online, so I don't like it on stage. I like to get people to just sit in front of their keyboard, computer, and take the time to write their answers.
And that's all for this special edition of TG Mag. Thank you so much for staying with us. See you next week with another special about International Journalism Festival with more interviews and focuses about the future of the news.